Mahadevan, and I'm honored to be here at Pier 21 in Halifax to talk about the lessons from immigration patterns and apply them to a better Canada in 2067. Because I am a teacher, I'm going to begin by asking everyone to stand up. I'll make a series of statements, and if one of these statements applies to you, then I'd like you to make a wave to the rest of us, and then please take your seat. Do look around you while you do this and see how it changes the space around us. So if you identify as an Indigenous Canadian, a First Nation, Inuit, or Mi'kmaq people, please take a seat. This is, after all, your land. If your family has been in Canada for more generations than you can remember, please give us a wave and sit. If your grandparents or great-grandparents immigrated to Canada, but your parents were born in Canada, please give us a wave and sit. If your parents immigrated to Canada, but you were born in Canada, please give us a wave and sit. This leaves all the souls who took the risk and became first-generation immigrants to Canada. And if you immigrated to Canada and are not related to me, please give everyone a wave and sit. And the two people who remain standing are the brave fools who uprooted their lives and brought me to Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, these are my parents, and while we may be unwitting settler colonialists, we are part of that vital engine of immigration that propels us into the future. Standing here on Pier 21 in Halifax, we're surrounded by the history of immigration in Canada. Economic migrants, displaced persons from the war, refugees from communism, all arrived on ships right here in Halifax and boarded trains to settle Canada east to west. Then, about 50 years ago, air travel shifted the immigration arrival points to cities like Montreal, Vancouver, and Toronto. On May 22, 1996, just under 21 years ago, my family flew into Canada, each of us carrying just $500 in our pockets. I was 17 then, and I can still remember the startled look the immigration officer gave us at Pearson Airport when we realized how little we had brought with us to start our lives here. Last year, when we went to Ottawa to meet Prime Minister Trudeau, my family had grown to 8, to include my partner Jacob and his family. And in the 2 decades spanning these two events, I've managed to get through several universities in the US and Canada. I was given opportunities to study in Germany, research in Switzerland, publish academic papers, write a novel, and teach over 1,000 students. I'd like to share my family's success with that immigration officer and see what he makes of us now. The point I'm trying to make is that someone took a chance on us. Someone looked past their fear that this poor Indian family might not survive in Toronto. They gave us an opportunity, and we made the most of it and flourished. We flourished not because we're special. To borrow from Cole Porter, Ukrainians escaping the Holodomor did it. Displaced persons after the war did it. Hungarians in the 50s did it. Italians and Greeks did it. Portuguese from the Azores did it. Somalis and Ethiopians did it. Tamils escaping wars in the 80s did it. Now, Syrians do it. In 50 years, climate refugees will do it. Let's do it. Let's find the will to do it. But that will mean each of us embracing the idea that in 50 years, we want Canadians to be more different than alike. That our soft approach of multiculturalism will lead to an in-your-face diversity of awesome proportions. Are we ready for that? The truth is that a Torontonian living in 1967 could not have predicted what a marvel their city would be in 2017. Keep in mind, Montreal was the happening city in 1967. Toronto was a waspy town. No CN Tower, no Eaton Centre. Dining out in Canada meant having steak, a sandwich, or fish and chips, not the smorgasbords of delights that we've come to expect from our multi-ethnic cities. If Montreal was the happening place in 1967, Toronto in 2017, then where will Canada's economies, ideas, and arts come from, the driving force in 2067? I do hope that cities will continue to lead the way in Canada's future. I see glimmers of the future I desire in Winnipeg, with its fast-growing Somali and Filipino communities and its indigenous mayor in Brian Bowman. I see it in Calgary, in Nahid Nenshi, the first Muslim mayor of a large city on Turtle Island. But I also worry whether our cities will be able to support the jobs and lives of peoples living in them. Driverless cars, robots in manufacturing, toilets that clean themselves and talk to the fridge and the doctor's office. Where's the work for our taxi drivers, our factory workers, our lab technicians? 50 years from now, will my daughter be able to stand here and deliver a bicentennial speech, or will most of Halifax be underwater? And your children and your grandchildren become the new climate refugees, a new generation of displaced people? These are the questions that drive my work with young people today, as I ready them for a world that does not yet exist, prepare them to create such a world with tools that are not yet made, and look past my own fears as I hope that they will flourish in a society whose rules have not yet been written. The generation that will ring in the bicentennial is already here, in daycares and in schools, in homes and on the streets, in Canada and around the world. It is our choice on how we want to shape and educate them on Turtle Island. This year, my youngest students in Toronto are just turning 13. As a group, they are the best of what immigration has offered Canada over the last 100 years. Children from around the world with 100 questions, 10,000 opinions, and 1 million dreams, learning, growing, and playing together. In 50 years, when Canada turns 200, they will be on the cusp of retirement. In 50 years, I will be 88, and if I'm not yet senile, I hope that some of my students will visit me and share their stories of how they helped make Canada their better country. We need to start laying the groundwork today to help the future Canada make sense of a cacophony of empowered voices. We must teach our children to embrace true differences in values and ideas that now exists as the world has come home to Canada. I don't know if in 50 years' time we'll still be a wealthy nation, but we can choose to be a generous one. We can choose to respond with love and acceptance rather than fear and intolerance. It is in celebrating our differences, Muslim and queer Canadians alike, Indigenous and immigrant Canadians alike, condo-dwelling and rural Canadians alike, in making room for those voices to be heard, in allowing them to shape our common future together, that we can truly demonstrate the strength of our unity in our amazing diversity. Thank you so much.